welcome. You're watching We the People. I'm Rishika Barua. The state of Uttarakhand is the first Indian state to enact a uniform civil code believed to be a template that many states will soon adopt. The UCC, or the Uniform Civil Code, would apply uniformly to all communities across all religions, not including tribals. It will impact marriage, it will impact divorce, it will impact inheritance, it will impact adoption, among a whole host of other issues. While many provisions are controversial, the biggest bone of contention is the provision for mandatory registration of live-in relationships, with the new act now entering a rather uncharted territory on surveilling informal sexual relationships between consenting adults. This act essentially makes registration of live-ins mandatory, that too within the period of 1 month. Else, you could be subject to a hefty fine or even a jail term. Parental consent is now required for live-in couples below the age of 21 years. A child born out of a live-in which is registered is considered legitimate with all the rights of any other child. The rule also applies to those who live outside the state of Uttarakhand. So if you are from Uttarakhand but you live elsewhere, you can't just skip the hills and skip the rules. You still have to submit a statement to the registrar. Now, there are several of these provisions that have raised constitutional concerns of privacy, of personal liberty. Enacted in the name of gender justice and the rights for women, who does the Uniform Civil Code really benefit? Isn't this particular provision of the Uniform Civil Code, along with a whole host of others, rather intrusive, especially when it comes to live-in couples? What about same-sex couples? And most importantly, while the state wants to meddle with affairs of the home and the heart, what about the rights of live-in couples? Is it an all duty and no rights kind of a rule? On the show today, we ask, enacted in the name of gender justice, is the Uniform Civil Code in Uttarakhand a threat to privacy? I have with me an expert panel of lawyers, political activists, former persons from the All India Personal Muslim Law Board, Women's Commissions, etc., all joining us on the show. We also have same-sex couples joining us. But I want to first give out a disclaimer. My team and I have tried for a whole week and reached out to several living-in couples, several people who are in live-in relationships, who've been living together for several months or several years, but they have all refused to come on the show, even with their identity concealed. The reason I bring forward this disclaimer at the very outset is because I think it does, in a certain sense, highlight the fear psychosis among live-in couples in our country today. Remember, the Uniform Civil Code is in Uttarakhand today, but is soon going to be a template for what many other states across our country are going to implement. I want to first open this show up today to the audience we have with us. We have a young audience who's joining us. These are the young men and women who will be impacted the most by these new rules and regulations. So what do you guys think of it? Let me begin by asking, we have a same-sex couple with us here. How do you look at this? These provisions for live-in relationships, will it really help in any way, or how do you look at it?
No, I don't think it will really help the society, because we are really wants our right. They are not giving us. What happened recently in Kerala, where the two gay couple and one misfortunate happened and died, and the second couple who was asking his body, and they denied. In a court also they denied. And if we really see, this is the key issue. Really, they really need to be addressed. Rather than addressing these issues, they are just putting their nose in somewhere they really don't need it.
Right.
Like Puttaswamy judgment already, they said that
no,
we have a private life.
How does it impact you? Particularly
living
in, does it impact
if we see you? If I want really with my female friend, I want to just rent out a room, how I can prove to the landowner that we are not a couple and we are just our friends?
Right.
Because they are just dividing the society on their genitals. They are creating a more masculine society.
Sure.
Why they are doing this?
Okay, very interesting point. So if you just want to live in with a friend and you don't necessarily have any kind of a relationship beyond friendship, do you need to prove your friendship now to the state? It's very complicated. There are lots of other people in the audience who had questions that, go ahead.
My question about the protection of women. If after it is compulsory to living have to be registered, so women protection is available, or it is be like
Okay,
a
so-
talking sense.
Okay, so you're saying that how does registration of a live-in relationship guarantee protection to the woman? Do I understand that? Okay.
Exactly. I would like to add up to the same point over here. How does a marriage makes a woman or a couple more secure? एक शादी एक institution के जैसे compare किया जाता है. It's just a ceremony. You just
It's
go
like
around-
the state telling you कि शादी कर लो.
Exactly. शादी कर लो आप safe हो जाओगे. क्यों भाई मुझे नहीं करना शादी. मैं बिना शादी. I mean, you can do everything without a marriage as well, right?
Right.
There's nothing wrong in that. Apart
So you're
from
saying this is very pro-marriage.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Interesting. The girl there in the front. How do you feel about it?
So my question is, how does the legal recognition of live-in relationship compare with traditional marriage in terms of rights or properties or other legal aspects?
Is it all duties and no rights?
Yeah,
If
exactly.
by registering a live-in relationship, you're actually being entitled to certain rights, then it perhaps has some grounding. But in this case, it's just all duty. Go register, prove your relationship. Talk about your breakup when you have one. You have to register that too. But what rights are you getting? Okay. So very interesting questions. Yes. Final word to you. Go ahead. Then I'll open this
My
up to
question is,
panel.
how much is the administration prepared to register and to realize the reasons behind the breakup and for the registration of the live-in relationships?
Sure. And if there's a conflict in a situation where if the state feels that, the rights of the woman are not being protected, etc., they can also call you in for questioning and they can be further probes. The other angle that I really want to explore in this show also is, does this really make it more complicated for interreligious couples? Remember, there's been a whole debate around the idea of love jihad, whether it exists or it doesn't. So, a lot of really interesting questions here. Let me open this up to my panel. I have an excellent panel joining me on We the People. We have Zainab Sikandar, political analyst and columnist, Lalita Kumaramangalam, former chairperson of the National Commission for Women, and we also have Dr. Saeed Ilyas. He's a spokesperson of the All India Muslim Personal Law Board, and Kabir, who's a content creator and also in a same-sex relationship. Thank you all very much for joining us. Lalita Kumaramangalam, I want to begin by asking you, several interesting questions raised by my young audience in the studio today. On the first thing that I want to ask you, is this all duties with no rights? If you follow the new rules and you go ahead and you register your live-in relationship, what is it doing for you? What is the live-in couple getting out of this registration process?
See, there are both pros and cons to this part of the UCC that has been introduced. The pros are that if any child is born out of such a relationship, and let me add in the beginning that I am the last person to judge whether a couple want to live in or not, break up or not. It's their personal business. But there have been a lot of complaints from many girls, again, around love jihad and about being abandoned by boys when they're pregnant or when they thought that it was a long-time relationship, all of that, which according to me, again, are personal questions. But many girls do complain saying that given society is still so patriarchal, I mean, it's disgustingly patriarchal according to me, but that's a different question altogether. It is still very patriarchal. It is the girl who gets judged much more than a boy does if there is a breakup.
Okay.
But then this also applies to the fact that when a live-in relationship is registered, there will be many more people to point fingers at the female partner rather than the male partner when it comes to heterosexual relationships.
Yes.
When it comes to same-sex relationships, and having worked with that community for the last 35 years and having an enormous number of very good friends from that community, I understand their angst. It is a very, very sensitive, it's like, you're literally walking on hot coals. One of the things that I would like to see that if this law, UCC actually comes into thing is that the people who will be responsible for taking care of what we are calling the negative aspects in case there is not a registration, the police, the administration, etc., especially local administration at the Zilla and Panchayat level,
Yes.
need to be given a totally different they need to be trained to think differently. Society still thinks in a very, very patriarchal manner, which is why we are still so judgmental about people in same-sex relationships, whether they belong to the female or the male gender. Secondly, we need to be very clear that this sort of information will not be misused by anybody who is in power, whether it is politics, whether it is the police, whether it is the administration, income tax, etc., etc., etc.
Right.
Are there safeguards for that?
Right.
the good thing that I see in this is that children born out of such
Yes.
relationships will have rights.
You
which
did
is also
highlight
necessary.
you did highlight that. So it also in a certain sense gives a more protection perhaps to a pregnant woman in a live-in relationship. Rights of
Yes.
the child guaranteed.
Yes.
Those definitely are the positives. But you've also highlighted several questions, Lalita Kumaramangalam, which again brings us to the point of, has this really been thought through? Do we really understand the finer modalities of implementing this across states in our country? What's it going to look like? I think several questions there. But Zainab Sikandar, on the point of women's safety and women's security, and this being something that will bring about gender justice, how do you look at how women are going to be impacted specifically? There was a very interesting question in the audience saying, how does a registration of a live-in relationship guarantee women's security? I mean, how do the two tie in together, if at all?
Most of the points that Lalita ji said, I completely agree with them. And, the main thing is that because it's a patriarchal society, no matter if the girl is consenting to be in a live-in relationship, most of the judgment will be cast on the female in a heterosexual relationship. Now, I have to be very honest, and I want to say that personally, at a personal level, I have to say that I do not believe in live-in relationships. I think that as an institution, it doesn't sit well in our society. And I mean specifically in the case of India. So personally, this is my personal opinion.
Yes.
I'm not trying to put it on anyone else. I don't believe in live-in relationships. So theoretically, this law...
Be that as it may, the larger question, like I said, is how does it guarantee
Yes, that
safety
is
to
the
women?
reason that I'm saying this. The reason that it doesn't sit well with me, and I think this law is correct theoretically, is because it does protect the female more than the male. Because since the judgment lies more with the man, so the onus and the responsibility through this sort of, what you could call it, like it's like a thappa on the relationship, literally. It is a legal thappa on the relationship that the guy can't take the female partner that he has for granted, especially if they have a child out of wedlock.
But there was another very interesting question from the audience, that how is it then different from just getting married? Then you may as well go to the court and register a marriage.
Then, again, the legalities, a divorce, especially if we see the Hindu Marriage Act, a divorce is much more long drawn. Even if you see the Muslim marriage and divorce, the khula or the talaq is still a long drawn process. This is still more simpler.
Okay, fair point. Dr. Ilyas, my question is very simple to you. Do you think that this further complicates the life of interreligious couples?
Definitely, it complicates the life. Basically, when they say that it is they will guard the private relationship of the people, so it will be interference in the privacy of the people, personal liberty of the people, and so many other things. And secondly, it is not a uniform at all. When you exempt tribals and you say that they will not be included, then how can be uniform civil code? Secondly, if you go through the entire civil code, it is the Hindu code which has been implemented through uniform civil code. So it is not, again, we can say that it is a uniform civil code. Secondly, when you see the entire civil code, there are so many exemptions. If a person marries, if a Hindu marries, according to this law, they may get so many exemptions, but no other person. Thirdly, when we say India is protect the diversity of the country, we have a multi-religious society, we have multicultural society. So why you bring one uniform civil code for the people? We are a heterogeneous society.
Those are larger questions on the UCC. We've debated the pros and cons. I'm talking specifically about live-in relationships.
Basically, India is a predominantly a religious country, whether it is Hindu religion or Islamic religion or Christian or whatever, and no religion subscribe to the living relationship. Secondly, when you say that living relationship should get registered, then what is wrong? What happened in marriages? Marriages also get registered.
Yes.
So it is as good as marriages.
Okay. I want to Karuna Nandi, advocate of the Supreme Court, also joining us. Before I come to you, Karuna, I want to get a quick word in from Kabir. He's also in a same-sex relationship. He's a content creator. Kabir, just thoughts. How do you look at this? Prima facie, how do you look at this? There's no mention of same-sex couples. There's nothing in this for you, literally. But how do you look at this?
It just is very funny because the word uniform in itself it's laughable because it really is going to the same point. It's proving the point that we are not even in the line of sight when it comes to policies. And I would want to probably correct one of my learned friends who was here, who said India is a religious country. India is a secular country. So that is the fabric of our society. And when you talk about inclusiveness, and in the name of inclusiveness, what you're trying to build on with policies like this, it's imperative that you can consider everyone. Right. And what we are seeing here, the problem is not that Uttarakhand is doing it. The problem is that this is going to be a model that they will replicate for the rest of the country.
Yes.
And that's where the entire problem begins.
Karuna, Nandi, lots of questions for you. You wear a legal hat, so explain to us. The first question is what one of the young audience members asked. How is this different from just getting married? If you have to prove to the state why you're in a live-in relationship, and then you have to go register your relationship and then register your breakup, etc. So why not just get married? And the second question, Karuna, Nandi, very simply, is it really the state's business?
I think you really hit the nail on the head, and you have sort of summarized very briefly what the Supreme Court has said in a 9-judge bench, which is that there is intimate decision-making that our Constitution protects through privacy. Now, rights cannot be the subject of a debate or of the state coming in and invading those rights. In fact, the state must protect those rights. Why do I say that this is an example of a state invading the right to free choice? Now, there are a lot of people, even on this panel, sort of making it very, very clear, that it's not me, I am not interested in live-in relationships, etc., because there is a significant amount of social opprobrium attached to it. If the goal of the Uttarakhand state is to bring rights, is to bring uniform rights and to bring civil rights, then let them tweak this to remove the criminal penalty, to make sure that the whoever they use, the gender neutral term whoever they use, applies to everybody, regardless of gender, regardless of sexuality. Because at the moment the words are there, they just need to, for fuller clarification, make an explicit statement, right, and let it be a registered civil partnership. That would bring rights. At the moment, the way it currently stands, this code only brings penalty, only brings pain, because it allows the registering authority to consult all sorts of people. It necessarily, quite apart from the criminal penalty, makes the relationship public and a matter for state and society, whereas the couples may absolutely not choose to, and in fact have not, because they have chosen not to get married in most cases, and makes vulnerable couples that are already vulnerable because of the nature of the relationship, and very often because they are not getting social sanction, because they are of different castes. Remember the very, very limited, I think it's 11% of people marrying even within castes, forget within religions. So this can be changed. This can be made a civil partnership for all. But of course, we know that's not going to happen.
I think you've raised a very important question on what about the rights? There are duties for registration, but what about the rights? Lalita Kumaramanglam, do you want to briefly address that? Do you think this is a all duty, no rights kind of a deal?
No. Like I said, there are pros and cons to the law, and the fact is that an individual has as much right to choose to to speak or not agree with same-sex or even live-in relationships as they have to agree with it. So both are.
But at the same time, you're not giving live-in relationship couples the choice. But
No. But I haven't said that. They have a choice. Every individual has the right to decide whether they want to get married or not. Right? I don't think we are being fair to everybody if we say that one has the right to say I don't believe in it, as much as if one has to say
address a simple question.
According to me, the law needs a lot of tweaking.
Many people I have a very specific question. Many people in live-in relationships today are not getting into civil partnerships or not
Yes.
not registering marriages because they want to keep it private, because they are either, the partner is of a different caste or a different religion, there are families not accepting. So those are the people who find it easier perhaps to live their lives in live-in relationships, but you're taking that privacy away from them.
To those people, we need to be able to explain to them then very clearly that if it is not a civil relationship, to put it in slightly different terms, then there are rights to which, especially the women, who are the ones who normally get more approbation, more judgment, less rights, etc., if the relationship breaks up, and the children don't have access to. Right in the beginning, this is what I said. This is extremely important.
There was one more question. We
also need to understand, 1 minute, we also need to understand that same-sex relationships must come under this. It's very unfair to leave them out.
You said that.
Because we have to stop being so, sorry, I can't use the word I wanted to. We have to stop being so judgmental about these sort of things.
Yes.
If we're talking about inclusion, then include everybody.
Okay. Well, that's a welcome thing. I want to very quickly, Karuna Nandi, because you're a senior advocate of the Supreme Court, you understand the finer nuances of this. There was a member in the audience who had a very interesting question. What if two friends want to live together? What if they're not in a live-in relationship? There are so many people who come to the city for work, etc. And what if a man and a woman who are just friends want to live together? What do they do?
I think precisely. Imagine the invasion of privacy. Lawrence versus Texas was a landmark case in the US Supreme Court, which invalidated sodomy laws across the United States, and they made same-sex sexual activity legal in every state of the United States. But they did this, and the reason I bring this up, on the basis primarily of privacy. So what is the state going to do if somebody says that they are, in fact, a very eminent investment banker tweeted that when she graduated from IIM Ahmedabad, she was living in what were then called chammaries, which were, she was, living with various genders, and her parents trusted her upbringing to the extent that she was not engaging in sexual activity without any judgment.
Yes.
Now, the point is that how is the state going to establish that this is a live-in relationship and therefore worthy of criminalization? Are they going to come into your house and check whether there is sexual activity or not?
Yes.
What level of invasion of privacy is this?
Okay, I think you've left us with a thought that we all really need to think over. The purpose of this conversation has been to ask some of these questions that I think are playing on a lot of people's minds. We've had a panel of experts answer them. We've had a young audience who's voiced those questions and concerns. That's all the time we have on this edition of We the People. If you've tuned in tonight, thanks for watching.